Hello and welcome to Wellness Women's Features. And today, this month, we are featuring Adrienne Glasser. She is a psychotherapist and she does somatic dance therapy. She does parts work, and she will be explaining in depth what exactly all that means and what exactly she does and how she helps people in our community. Hi, Adrienne.
Hey, so good to see you, Louisa.
So
Thanks
good to
for
see you.
having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. And we were just talking a moment ago about how it was so special to have you at our last winter retreat. Adrienne led a somatic dance therapy portion of our day, and it was absolutely magical. It was incredible. And you're so good at what you do. Uh,
Oh,
and I'm so excited to share, go more in depth about why it works so well, what you do. There is just some kind of magic that you have, though, I think, to help people feel comfortable um, in movement and like with the word dance.
yeah. No, that means a lot because I think a lot of folks are very intimidated by being embodied. Like it can be, and the word dance brings up a lot for people. So I tend to talk about somatics to try to soften it a little bit, but like that experience with you was wonderful. I feel like you were able to really talk about emotions and how to embody emotions, and then to be able to take a group of folks through an embodied experience of how to have different parts of them and have a relationship with those different parts and their authentic self, just to be able to have that embodiment and work with that group. It was really magical. It was a really great group of people. So
It
thanks.
was. It was such a cool day, and yes, a really great group of folks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go into your background a little bit. So whatever you want to share with us, about like your childhood, where you came from, where you grew up.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New York, which is kind of a fast-paced place to grow up. Like you grow up real quick in New York City. So yeah, my childhood. What was my childhood like? On one hand, my childhood was I've always been a very like vibrant person. I've always like had a lot of like light and joy for days. So that's been a big piece for me. One of my earliest memories is actually dancing on, it used to be called the Aaron Krantz School of Social Work. For those who know, it's now the NYU Silver School of Social Work. But when my mom was graduating from there, I was probably like 5 years old, and I gave an impromptu dance performance on the steps social work school. And that, I mean, I would say like that captures one aspect of like my self energy in the parts world. Like my self energy would give these impromptu kind of like dance performances in these like very public ways. And at the end of the day, it would just be like inspiring for folks. And I look back at that because my childhood was also very challenging. I was doing a lot of like caretaking and throughout my childhood and adolescence and 20s, there's a lot of difficulty with mental health in my family and health in family, and just tons of caretaking. I guess you could call it codependent or enmeshed kind of systems. So on one hand, I was like doing these impromptu kind of dance things that were inspiring to folks. And then there was like this very dark, isolating, traumatic kind of stuff happening. So I just sort of had this like parallel of like, looking at like where was my self energy as a kid. And it was always in these like, it was always through movement, through dance, through access to, I think of like the divine in the body of like, why is this happening? And I think it's interesting because, giving a embodied impromptu dance performance on the School of Social Work steps is like that just kind of sums it up for me, because I'm a very out of the box therapist. Like I'm sort of like radical in a lot of ways. There's lots of us. I'm glad to be in good company. But yeah, I just think that that's been a big part of what I've been
Kind
able
of
to
have naturally been doing that.
flow with. Yeah. Because when I look back at my life, I'm like, I always found resiliency in the body.
Yeah.
That's always what I came back to. And I know you could probably identify with that too, because you're such a embodied practitioner. So
Yeah, I love that you say you find resilience in the body, because our bodies really are, they really handle a lot very well, I think,
yeah.
considering what some of us go through, you know.
Yeah. So like on one hand, there's all this, resiliency. And then, I also had my own struggles with like a lot of grief and depression and anxiety. And at the same time, as a young kid in New York, I got therapy really early. Like I was like diagnosed with ADHD and like they're like, why are you doing terribly in school? It must be because of ADHD, not because of any other thing that was happening for me. But that being said, I had this like old school kind of psychoanalytic, which by the way, psychoanalysis has like wonderful wings to it. But like at the time, like that's not what I needed as a 15-year-old, 14-year-old. It's like somebody with a pen and, so I really was always curious as I was struggling with like depression and disassociation, like how there could be better therapy than this. Like I was always getting therapy and just being like, what is this? Like, what are we doing? Like I was sort of like, didn't treat it very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think on some level, I knew there was something deeper that wasn't happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So I think I chased that in a lot of ways. I chased like, how can I have a deeper embodied spiritual connection with myself that wasn't happening, at the time. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because I mean, it's important to talk about and analyze things, but then to take it a step further, right? And get in deeper with yourself and really connect. Yeah, I love it. I love that you bring movement in.
Yeah.
Okay, so and what like would you say, I guess that also comes into like what led you on the path. So yeah, what did you have like a moment where you decided like I need to get into this field, or was it a
Well,
thing?
yeah. Well, it's sort of in my family, we were either social workers, like therapists, or we were accountants. Like that's kind of what. So my mom was a therapist. And so I saw like a very kind of behavioral approach to therapy. So I think there was a very easy way of being like, oh yeah, it makes sense that you would want to be a therapist. But what the real moment for me was I was in my 20s and I remember just spending like so much time in and out of hospitals with people dying and almost dying and caretaking, and at the same time trying to be a good social worker, going to foster care homes. And it was real hectic. And I was really struggling while I was in that. I was like heavily compulsively in food, other compulsive behaviors. And I started going to 12-step programs. And when I started going to 12-step programs, they were like, oh, there's a whole spirituality piece to this. You got to find higher power. And I was like, a cultural Jew with very little connection to that. And I was like, well, what is it? What does the spirituality really mean to me? And how can I get out of this suffering and this misery? Because I was helping people, but absolutely miserable at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I just remember if I just look at what I was doing during that time, it was this mixture of going to churches and like almost like multitasking in a church of like, I would go to my Sangha, which was like my beginning of my Buddhist studies, right after a 12-step meeting. Like I would go to a 12-step meeting, I would go to my Sangha, and then I would try to go to like my African dance class to try to go and do like live drumming and study that, lineage of dance. And I was just, and then I would be going to the hospital and trying to caretake. And it was a lot of running around and suffering, but also like spiritually searching at the same time.
And
And
learning comes up, right? Like you were like learning, like just different modalities.
a hunger for learning. I've
Yeah.
always had a real hunger for just that there's more than this, that just a knowing that there's and being curious also, coming from a place of pain of like, let me figure out something else because this is, painful and suffering. So it really piqued my interest in spirituality, therapy. But then I also had a job that um, allowed for me to start seeing experiential therapy, like psychodrama. And psychodrama had a huge influence on my life. I was like a very young social worker. I was doing an intake and, I have my pen and I'm all nervous. And all of a sudden I hear the group next door being like, you're and like, like really. And I was like, I want to be doing that. Like, that's really like, I want to like get in there, get put in. And so that started my experiential, like I wanted to experience things more fully because I felt so numb and shut down that experiential therapy was a way of like experiencing things in a new way in my body.
Yeah.
And it had a huge impact. And I would say that's had the biggest, that experiential therapy and spirituality, my Buddhist studies, like those things have had like the biggest impact on me personally in terms of my own like personal growth and just able to access my body again.
Wow,
Yeah.
really interesting. I didn't realize there was psychodrama.
Yeah.
I
So
heard that before, like being in at live arts, and they would always have, we'd be in the Pilates studio, and then we'd hear people like yelling, screaming, like, I'm like, oh, don't worry, they're just like doing their thing, just actors.
we're just like accessing our deepest trauma and like getting ourselves what we needed and getting it all healed.
Yes.
But and it really works quickly, like these group experiences where embodiment comes in the form of both role play and movement and somatics and parts work. Like to me, it's just like hyper speeds, like growth and healing. It's just they're really powerful. So by doing experiential therapy like psychodrama, movement, shamanic work, it's embodied shamanic work. That's been like just like it feels like a fast forwarding of healing in a way, but not that you're bypassing anything, but you're really getting to things deeply, quickly.
Feeling it and experiencing it and moving it. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. And so like for those of us like don't know anything at all about this, what would you say? I mean, how would you describe what it is that you do exactly?
Yeah. So I do somatic parts work. So what that means is I'm accessing different parts of my body, mind, and spirit and having a relationship with it, learning to have a relationship with the various parts of myself. So those parts could be anxiety, it could be worry, it could be depression, it could be, old child parts that seem locked in a certain way of being that shows up in your everyday life.
Yeah.
So the way that I work primarily is getting folks to have a relationship with those parts of themselves from an embodied place of true essence, experiential awareness, like your true self. People talk about true self, there's different words for this. I like self energy or true
That's
essence.
kind of like your essence and your source apart from all the little like pieces of yourself. It's kind of
Yeah, there's this beautiful term in the internal family systems world, which is where this parts work comes from, called unblending. And the key to this work is so much of like we tend to lead from different parts of ourselves. We tend to lead from, a part that wants you to think I'm cool or like think that we're connected or, what name it, right? And how can we lead from a place in our lives where we're actually just our true essence, but then notice that there is a part that wants you to think something about me, and to unblend from that part and just to notice it. By noticing it, by embodying it, you get to unblend and actually have like a relationship with it so that it can get some like calm or support, so that that way we can actually have a heart-to-heart connection. There's more opportunity for that. But I'll also say that there's wisdom in the part, like there is self energy in the part that's doing that, because it learned to do that to protect me, right?
Right.
So there's also, like, we can get meta with this, but like there is self energy, like
You
there's
don't
good.
want to like discard it, and it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of you that exists for a reason. And then you can understand that reason better. You probably understand yourself even better. I love that. And then that would probably help with reactivity, right? Like where
For
you're on
sure.
autopilot and you just like automatically do a habit you've done your whole life.
Yeah. No, it really helps with reactivity or with habitual patterns or with compulsive behavior, anything repetitive in that way, because you get to get some space and some awareness. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing as like an awareness practice and any sort of meditation, where you start to have the awareness of it, and then you can have a relationship with it where it overlaps with, meditation and Buddhism, where you have that relationship. You can help different parts of yourself to not have as much reactivity, or to have those parts not have to work so hard to protect you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And I think that's very powerful too, because I think a lot of us sometimes we try to hide or block out that part, like our bad side, or like, the parts of us that make us uncomfortable, or, not even wanting to accept that there is like these parts of ourselves. And that limits our healing so much if we are afraid to like look into the shadow parts, if you will.
Yeah. And so much of what fuels a lot of our protective system are parts of us that hold shame and hold negative beliefs that we picked up from all places in our lives. And most of the time, we're carrying a lot of energy that's not ours, and a lot of beliefs that are not ours. And it fuels a lot of the shame and blame that we experience, or critical parts that try to protect us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we're holding that actually doesn't belong to those parts of us.
Yeah.
So it's good to get a relationship with those parts and actually unburden that energy or those beliefs, so
Yeah.
there's healing. I mean, that's what I love about this kind of work, is that, people are like, oh yeah, I can come for therapy and I can come this many times, over time. And I'm like, the goal of this is for you to actually heal. Like we're here to actually heal these parts, and for you to have a relationship with your own system.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the goal.
I love that. And then there's maintenance work that happens, right? Like you probably like working with you can help people understand how to continue the work with themselves, correct?
My goal and my hope is that I'm giving folks a window into their system of protection, their system of wounding, so that they can come in with their true essence aligned with, source, whatever source that they believe in and it can embody, and to be able to have that relationship be ongoing for them way after we're together.
Yeah.
And that's what allows people to have freedom and have a sense of purpose and feel connected to themselves and more connected to others.
Yeah.
If they have more access to that kind of spiritual or, true essence, then there's a heart connection that can happen. And they tend to be more free and joyful and connected to purpose. So yeah, for you to know your own system is the goal, like for you to know your own system and to be able to give yourself the nurturing, of course, in community. I never want to be like, oh yeah, you should know your system so you could do it all yourself, because we've all done that our whole lives. So
good at that.
yeah. I have like very, very much parts that would be like, okay, so I'm going to be completely self-sufficient now. But no, it's more that you can have that kind of care for yourself and also be more open to other people supporting you that have access to that kind of self energy or that kind of alignment with you.
Yeah.
That's been a big part of my process, and also the help that I give healers and helpers, that like we also need to rely on other folks in addition to having our self energy, you know?
Yeah, it takes a community. So do you do one-on-one work? Do you do groups? Do you do it all, like all different ways? Like, yeah, how are the ways that you offer your services?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest specialty is being able to do group breakthrough experiences. So, or intensives. And I do that through the parts work, the IFS that I mentioned. So I'll take a group of folks through an experience, and it'll be somatic, experiential, and there's usually a lot of breakthroughs that happen. So I call them breakthroughs because I work with a group either over a couple of days. Sometimes it's a half a day intensive breakthrough experience. And then that's like the best way that I work with folks, is like having a group experience, because groups are really powerful. They're powerful conduits of self energy. There's a collective self energy, a collective source that is felt in a group that does more healing than, I could ever do by myself in an office.
Yeah.
Really fast forwards people's ability to connect to self energy and fast forwards their healing. It deepens their healing. But I also do these breakthrough sessions for couples, for individuals. They're longer sessions. They're usually about like 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes they can be days, depending on what, someone wants to work on. If it's trauma, usually it'll be a few, couple of half days or days, but we really give the time and energy to have someone get to know their system, get to know self-energy, embody their system, embody their self-energy, and learn how to work with their system in a different way through an experience. So it needs that time to like have an experience of something different, a new way of being, which is, it's there. It's just having more access to it,
Very cool. And then do you also like lead like instructional workshops for other therapists and practitioners?
Yeah, the retreats that I run, they're called breakthroughs. They're for healers and practitioners and therapists. So I have one that's for them. It's usually called Parts and Purpose. And then I have one that's for anybody. Usually it's creatives, people who are, in some kind of helping profession. But I usually work with a lot of creatives, and I work with a lot of LGBTQ folks. I do a lot of work around love and intimacy. That's a big focus, and sexuality. So I work with helpers and healers and therapists, and then with anybody who wants to really understand their system and their self-energy.
I love that. And then also I'm just curious to see how you describe it, but how would you describe somatic? Like what somatic means?
Yeah, somatic really it's the soma, which is like of the body. And so when I think of somatic, I really think of being able to go inside and feel the felt sense of the body. So you're feeling the felt sense, or the feeling body, the somatic body, that experience. So really tuning into sensation is a big piece of it. But there's so many facets of it. I mean, sensation is almost like the beginning of the pathway, right? So you can be curious towards the somatic body, the felt sense of the body. And that's usually a pathway towards parts of ourselves that hold experiences, memories, experiences somatically that are of the body, that are in the body, like
Yeah.
that are in the body.
Yeah.
And so then we get to work with them that way.
So it's like letting your like learning to listen to like your body's wisdom as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to think your way through things. It's more of feeling your way through things.
Yeah. And it's a curiosity towards the felt sense of the body. So
Mm,
it's a curiosity. So there, usually when I'm guiding someone somatically, I'm asking them to notice or be curious towards what the felt sense is or towards sensation.
yeah.
And then there is an aspect of you that's being curious. So then notice the aspect of you that's being curious, because that's actually more than likely it's some aspect of your self energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a beautiful way to have a relationship, to start to notice the relationship between us noticing ourselves and where we do that from, and how that self, most of the time that's coming from self energy, and then noticing the parts. So it becomes this way of starting to notice we already have a relationship to these things. So how can we just like really see and feel what our relationship is to our body and to our spirit?
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, and do you have like an example or like I don't know, a story that you could share of like a success or I don't know, like an epiphany or something that somebody you've worked with has had doing this work, or even your own experiences, like, how an example of how it can be successful in somebody's life.
Yeah. There's a few people that come to mind when I think of like, success, which is it's a beautiful way to think of success. Like success means, oh, someone has body freedom and spiritual freedom. Like, isn't that beautiful?
It's
Like,
not always like financial,
right.
gain.
Yeah. Which also, I mean, it gives them more energy to do whatever they do,
Yeah.
to potentially, have financial abundance. But it's, yeah. So that kind of success where somebody really got freedom. I think of some folks that I've helped who've had severe trauma. Some folks that come to mind are people who have been in domestic violence situations, just because that's a very clear, experience that folks have had. And the protection that comes with that, and being able to work with some people over many years and some people just for a few times, just being able to have them notice their protective system from a place of curiosity and not self-blame. A big piece in trauma of all kinds is self-blame. And so for folks to start to notice their own self energy and their own connection to source, they start to feel more empowered. So noticing folks who've had those experiences feel more empowered. And then the biggest moments that are just incredible in the work that I do is seeing people actually heal the energy that doesn't belong to them. A
Mm.
lot of the time we'll say, okay, let's like let it go or like shake it off, and some of that is great just as like a quick discharge, and it's beautiful to do that. There's a very powerful experience when somebody notices how they're holding belief or energy in their body that doesn't belong to them. And when
Yeah.
they do it in a group of people, it really gets affirmed because other people can mirror and reflect back like, yeah, this really doesn't belong to you. This belongs to the person that, this happened with.
Yeah.
And to really see people have the healing of the energy and the beliefs actually getting healed and leaving is it's one of the most powerful experiences that I ever have in my life. It's what keeps me doing this work, is to see people let go of that kind of shame or armor, and it's not done lightly. It's done we're first validating what happened. We're feeling the protectors, we're feeling the experience, but we're also having a relationship with it where you can start to feel empowered and start to understand that there is a different way of embodying this relationship
Yeah.
with the wounding, right? So you start to have a different relationship with the wounding, and that in and of itself becomes healing, because most of the time we were alone.
Yeah.
We were alone, there was no one there. And that's a huge part of the wounding, is that we're having a traumatic experience, we're carrying shame, and we're alone. So
Yeah.
now we're having a healing experience where we're in a group, we're not alone, we're with ourselves. We have another relationship with ourselves connected to source.
Yeah.
And an energetic discharge that's very healing and real, right? It's like, it's the real deal. Like, this is not coming back. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
actually healed,
Yes.
which is it's a beautiful, magical, incredible experience that's real. And there's words fall short for what happens in these experiences.
Yeah.
Because that kind of healing, it really frees people in a way that is very expansive. You can almost feel how expansive it is. So
How beautiful, how wonderful that that's what you do. Like,
yeah,
is
those are my favorite those are my favorite experiences with people I've worked with, for sure.
how wonderful. Yeah. And you, like I said earlier, you are truly in your element when you are leading your workshops, as I've witnessed. And yeah, it is powerful. And on my own healing journey, like finding embodiment, doing somatic work, doing my healing work, and feeling empowered has really helped me personally realize that, like, I do have um some sense of like control over how I am with myself, as opposed to where before it was like trying to control situations and things outside of myself because of having anxiety, and you're wanting to, like, and it's like kind of impossible, and you're kind of constantly always anxious. And then being able to turn all that energy actually inward, um, I know has been a game changer for me in my journey on overcoming anxiety, for one. Feeling that empowerment in your own body is really powerful.
Yeah.
And I know there's like many different ways to kind of get there. But yeah, for me, movement's always been part of my life. Dancing's always been part of my life. So I also think that's why this really resonates, for me personally. But there's
Yes.
also some sort of ancient, instinctual thing about movement and dance that maybe we don't all realize, that it is like instinctual, it's innate in our bodies. Like, children automatically know to move when they hear beats because it's built within us. I think it's part of, you know, how we can deal with life, and we're supposed to be dancing and moving together with community.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And just, going back to that animals know how to, when they get unfrozen, like after they pass them out, it's like they know how to move, and we do too. We have that wisdom. It's just we have such protection. And once we get to like know that protection, like you said, like the anxiety, and thank you for sharing that, like you get to know those parts of yourselves and how they're working hard to try to keep us safe. And I love you also mentioning like taking the focus from going outward and like really focusing outward as a way of trying to control or feel safe, and actually, doing this U-turn of like going inward and really being like, how can I create the inner safety that, you and I, were talking about on the retreat, like that inner safety. It's very empowering.
Yeah.
Really empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life changing. It's life,
Yeah.
like you said, when you heal, it's not just like a band-aid put over something or temporarily. It's like a whole perspective shift, and it's life changing. And yeah, that's so wonderful that we have people like you that can help us on our journeys.
Yeah, you too.
Facilitate this.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all of this stuff with us. And do you have like a quick tip that you could share with us, something that we can do that's kind of easy to do on maybe a daily basis or like a semi-regular basis to help us, maintain better health and wellness?
Yeah. A lot of folks make the suggestion of pausing and getting in touch with the breath. And I just have like an added component of like noticing your breath, but also noticing how you're connected to source, like noticing the felt sense of how we're always connected to source. It could be the universe, it could be just the expansiveness of your breath or the expansiveness of your awareness. That kind of embodied breath experience of just noticing your body breathing and noticing the connection that you have outside of you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this could be done like through meditation or through prayer
Yeah,
or
I love spontaneous awareness practices. So meaning like moment to moment in your day-to-day life with eyes open, with eyes closed, just like taking moments of, okay, I'm breathing.
Mhm.
And just like noticing the horizon. Like I love noticing the horizon and the trees, or like just peeking through the window, like some sky.
Getting present, like
Yeah.
become aware of your present moment.
Yes. And I think just being able to focus in on like I could be having a conversation with you and I'm just noticing my breath and noticing like the light coming in from the windows, like that connects me to source and, outside of me. So just taking and doing it in the present moment, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, I need to like have a meditation practice, or like I need to meditate more often. Like we're always saying that. And it's like the moment to moment access to the self energy, like
Yeah.
that's really the purpose. People are always like, oh God, I have so much healing. How am I going to heal all the parts of me? And I'm like, the goal is to like access the self energy
Yeah.
and to lead from that place,
And you,
not necessarily heal everything.
right.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
heal all my parts in 1 hour meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they say about pelvic floor exercises too. I'm like, no, you don't need a whole hour, go to a gym, like you can, like, I just engaged my pelvic floor right now. Like you can do that anytime and connect to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that because it's true, I think. And then we like put it off because we think we need all this time, or we think
Yes.
master meditators right away. And I
Yeah.
love it. I do believe that of any type of healing, like physical too, you don't need an hour at a gym. You can move little bits throughout the day. You can check in anytime, anywhere,
Yeah.
for just moments at a time. I love
Yeah.
that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much, Adrienne.
Cool.
I will share your website and how people can get into contact with you. And you have a website with like your events coming up. And I know that people could curate their own groups and have you come in to
Yeah.
facilitate, right? People could contact you for.
For sure. Yeah. I've had, groups of folks that have contacted me and had me come and do work. I have my own intensive breakthrough that's happening this summer for helpers and healers. and online groups for anyone who's interested in love, intimacy, and connection.
Excellent.
So
And then what is your website, just so you can say it out?
my website is my name. It's adrienneglasser.com. And then on IG, I'm Adrienne Glasser Healing.
Okay. Adrienne Glasser. I love your Instagram
Yes.
videos, your movements.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Adrienne.
Oh, so good to see you.